everyone for coming to celebrate the publication of a romantic manifesto in Japanese, and we appreciate Gallery Art Composition and Mr. Kazumiya Shita for making this happen. Let me introduce you our two distinguished guests, Dr. Yaron Brook and Mr. Masayuki Kawai. Dr. Yaron Brook is the chairman of the board of Ayn Rand Institute and the leading expert of objectivism, the philosophy of Ayn Rand. Dr. Brook is the host of the Yaron Brook Show, a very popular show, and authors works that inspire critical thinking. And Mr. Masayuki Kawai is a Japanese artist and theorist of art and aesthetics, best known for his video art over there that combines abstract imagery, layered sounds, and thought-provoking narratives and challenges the role of technology in shaping human experience. In the Romantic Manifesto, A Philosophy of Literature, Ayn Rand defines art as a selective recreation of reality according to an artist's metaphysical value judgments. According to Yaron, art is an opportunity to reflect back to you your sense of life. It is a mirror that can refine your sense of life and sustain it. According to Kawai-san, information is coded and converted into signals, filtering good signals against bad noise, a process during which the organic, diverse, complex interactions are lost along with authentic elements of art, annihilating our sense of life, leading to cultural totalitarianism, which leads to questions such as, how can we reclaim our sense of life? What is the role of art in the process? And most importantly, how do we find the art that each of us can connect? So, let us start by asking this question, what is art? So Yaron, what is art? Why is it a matter of survival?
So it's a matter of survival because human beings function at a very abstract level. We are conceptual beings. We deal with very abstract concepts all the time in everything that we do. When we think about competence or heroism or good versus bad, good versus evil. These are all very abstract concepts, and it's very hard to hold them. And indeed, all of our lives we live in abstractions, with abstractions. What art does is it makes those abstractions real. It provides a concretization, an image, a story, a presence in the real world for these very abstract notions that we have. And I think as human beings, we need that. We need to connect back to reality. At the end, we live in a reality. We don't live in abstractions. The abstractions are tools for us to live. So we need the ability to reconnect with a concrete that then can fuel a better understanding of the abstraction and can fuel our ambition towards this greater abstraction. So, we might all, or some of us might strive to be heroic in our lives. But what does it mean to be heroic? Or we might want to be good. What does it mean to be good? Well, literature, for example, presents us with characters who are good and characters who are bad, and we can kind of see goodness. We can remember, oh, that character did this. That's what goodness means, and it reminds us of what we are capable of, or it reminds us of what we mean by goodness. And of course, these are simple examples, but there's, you can get into very, very abstract ideas, and you need art is a way of bringing them back into our perceptual, visual, and simple understanding. What art is, I think art is Ayn Rand says a selective recreation. So it's recreation. It's not reality. I don't think photography is art because it just recreates. I think you have to be selective. You have to choose what you're recreating, and you have to recreate it. You have to make it anew. You can't just take a tree and put a frame around it and say it's art. Unlike, so I don't agree with Duchamp's urinal in a frame. It has to be something that you do, and it has to be reflective of something. That is, it has to have meaning. And when Ayn Rand talks about metaphysical value judgments, What she means by that is that the art, the thing you've recreated has to reflect the artist's view about, deep truths about reality. Is reality knowable? The human beings belong on this planet. Can we know what's around us? So very metaphysical questions, very deep, basic questions about life. And we can do examples, some art is clear and sharp, and you can say, okay, the artist is reflecting here that we can really see, we can really understand the world around us. Other art is very fuzzy and very difficult to make out what it is. And then the artist is saying something about how he sees the world around him and how we should see the world around us. So, it's a very sophisticated process of our deepest psychological beliefs being manifested in a concrete representation in the world out there, a story, or painting, or sculpture, or some other form that combines them, right? Like a movie combines a bunch of different things, the visual and the storytelling.
So, Kawai-san.
Yeah, well, that's a big question actually, and I sort of agree with you. I mean, because when you say that, art making should be reflective, so it means it kind of like dealing with something like metaphysical value or metaphysical concept. That is true, and art is quite connected to philosophy actually. But my question is that, or probably my attitude to art is art should be freedom. So freedom for what? So I think art should be freedom for question, freedom of question, or freedom of, freedom of going elsewhere, or being the other. So art should be the freedom to challenge the pre-existing value, right? So when you say this is good or this is bad, well, you call it judgment, but I believe that art should go over the pre-existing judgment of values. So it's not only about the outer things, but also about the artist himself or herself too. So when I make something called art, so it should be go beyond my own expectation or my own evaluation. So I cannot tell this is good or this is bad, but this is beyond that kind of judgment. So it's kind of, I believe that it brings me a freedom, a certain freedom. So because it's even a freedom from myself, freedom from my own value, freedom from social prefixed values or something. So yeah, so that is my question. So I kind of agree that art should involve some judgment or realization of that kind of metaphysical reality or something. But I believe that when I say it's reflective, it should it should come back, but then go beyond, the pre-existing values or something. So it goes to somewhere else. But that is my, that would be my answer. What is art?
So you said before that art could be a question, not necessarily a message. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
What is the question? What is, I mean, when you say art is just a message, so I think it's too simple, because art is not to persuade somebody. art is not that kind of a force. You know, art doesn't force you to do something, but art just, I believe that art just try to accept something, or probably you can say that art is an attitude to accept, even though it seems unacceptable. So because art always questions the, pre-existing judgment. So it's acceptable, it's based on some certain judgment. This is acceptable, this is unacceptable. But art can question this kind of like a dualism. Yes, I believe so.
So, Yaron, I understand that Kawai-san is saying art can be very liberating.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is like the role and function of art to human spirits? What does it do to us?
Well, I think it does a lot of different things, and I agree that art is not didactic. Art is not an essay in philosophy. Art is not there to teach you anything. Its purpose is not to teach. Its purpose is for you to respond to it, to emote, to feel something. Art that doesn't cause you to feel something, I don't think is very effective. You have to feel something, and that feeling can inspire you to act. It can inspire you to look deeper into your own ideas, into why is this art making me feel this way? Why do I feel uncomfortable looking at, watching this movie? Why is it making me squirm? Why do I love this character? Why is this character amazing? What is it about me that is responding to them? The art is what it is, right? It's you responding to it, which is interesting. And in that sense, it's kind of reflective of your own values, your own state, questioning. If I'm responding to this, what is it about my soul? What is it about my consciousness that is interested in this? So art is it's the interaction, right? It's the emotional response that you provide, which could teach you a lot about yourself, about your values, about what you like and what you don't like, what you perceive. You might have, for example, certain ideas, but they're not tied to your emotions. The art will bypass the ideas and go right to the emotions, and you might find a conflict between what you respond to in the art and what you think you believe, right? So it's very, very an issue of self-discovery, right? Great art, I agree, challenges you to think about, is this who I am? Is this what I want to be? Are these my values? But it can also inspire. So when there's alignment, it can say, wow, life is so amazing. Or we had a dinner yesterday said something about life sucks, right? It could say, life sucks. But a lot of times it can inspire us to overcome great odds. We can watch somebody in a movie do something just incredible, and that just says, I can do that, right? I can live that kind of life. That kind of emotion comes around, and we need emotional fuel, right? We don't just live in abstractions and in ideas. We often need kind of the emotional fuel to be able to go and be challenged and to achieve things and to be successful in life. Art provides that fuel.
So could you give us some example that gave you fuels, like pieces of art that impacted you?
I mean, sure. Although I mean, it feels strange a little bit in this gallery, but the first time I saw Michelangelo's David, I was blown away. You can see photos of it, you can see pictures of it, but you don't get the scale, the power, the inspiration, what Michelangelo is portraying there is this heroism, and it's an ancient story, but you don't even need the story. You see a young man. He's very tall. He's massive. He's much bigger than and size. I think often can make a difference in sculpture, for example. And he's not acting. He's not in motion. He's not doing anything. But he's got this determination. And for me, that is like, wow. I mean, here's a young man. He's obviously facing a giant. He is a giant, facing a giant. But he's the giant of spirit, and you can see it in his face. And his muscles are relaxed. and he's about to go into action, it's like, yeah, I want to be him. I want to be like that. He represents kind of my values of what it means to be a human being who's really lived. And I can stand in that sculpture for an hour easily and just walk around it and just admire it from every aspect. I just think, and you always get something new. There's always some nuance there that is different. And if I read a Victor Hugo novel, again, what inspires me is these larger than life characters, these people who do things that are unimaginable that they could achieve, that they could do them, because I find inspiration in that. So in 93, the kind of conflicts, I don't agree with any of the characters. I don't, their ideas, their values are not my values. But the fact that they're willing to do what they're willing to do in order to achieve their values, that is what I respond to. I respond to their ambition, to their drive, to their romantic notion of what they can make their life into. So I respond a lot to what is called romantic art. Not romantic art in the sense of love stories, romantic art in the sense of the romantic movements of the 19th century, because it's an ambitious movement about the individual striving to make his life the best that he can be, which to me is incredibly appealing.
And Kawai-san, I think in your books, you warn us like the danger of like being impacted so much by digital media communication. What do you think? What kind of art inspires you? How do you find it?
Okay. What kind of art? Well, before going into the discussion about this whole thing, but I want to say something about my experience about Michelangelo. Yeah. For example, because when I see the Sistine Chapel, and of course Michelangelo, he also painted like heroic figures, but he also painted a really ugly figures, right? And something like damned people, like hell. And I was so much impressed by that too, even though they are ugly. But I don't know, but of course I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be like them, right? But it's really impressive, and I felt that if I need to define my feeling, I felt it's something like a genius. So at the time I thought that art can be like freedom of genius. And so what is genius? And probably it's a kind of like a tautology, but genius is freedom, and freedom is genius. But genius is a possibility, or it's an ability for freedom. So Michelangelo can do anything. So even though it might be against the intention of Pope or intention of his patron at that time, but he could do anything. Of course, he had a lot of limitation probably at that time, like realistic limitations. But he tried to go over that kind of limitation. So even the ugly things, not only heroic things, but also ugly things, he wanted to he wanted to explore. He wanted to explore, or he wanted to realize the most ugly thing in the world. So that is that is power of art, I believe. So it's not only about good thing, beautiful thing, heroic thing, but it's also about ugly thing or terrible things, something. So that's what I believe. And if I go back to digital thing, so yes, I always criticize digital society or digital evaluation because I believe, like, probably I have to elaborate a little bit about like what is digital, because digital is based on like dualism, I believe, and it's based on the dualism of 0 and 1, and it means like definition of what is useful and what is useless. So what is useful is picked up as signal, but what is useless is excluded as noise. So actually, digital system is based on exclusion system. So when I say digital and analog, well, but analog doesn't divide 0 and 1, so it can involve everything like accidental or everything like unpredictable. So when I say digital and analog, it has nothing to do with the technical stage or something, but it's a kind of like attitude. How do you react or how do you connect to the matters? If you connect to, for example, if you connect to this and you think this is useful or this is useless, if you have this kind of judgment, it's quite digital attitude. But if you just accept this is useful or useless, but you don't ask that kind of like question, but you just accept before that kind of definition, it will be analog, I believe. So I believe that like, Michelangelo, he painted that kind of like a Sistine Chapel. He didn't define this is ugly, this is beautiful, but he tried to involve everything. So he tried to like overcome prefixed evaluation. This is good, this is bad. Because probably Christianity or Catholicism at the time, or Pope, patron, they have that kind of like prefixed notion. You have to teach them. You have to tell them that this is good. This is good for Christianity or something. But Michelangelo, I believe that Michelangelo, he didn't follow that kind of like judgment. So I believe that this is quite analog attitude to the world or to everything.
Just one thing on Michelangelo. I don't want to come across as the only art that's worthwhile is art that presents heroic. I mean, so I agree. The Last Judgment, which is the ugly, right? Where Jesus is standing up there, you're going to hell and you're going to hell. I mean, it is a magnificent work of art, and it's incredibly powerful. And if you're a Christian, right? I'm not, but if you were a Christian, you stand in front of there, and I'm going here or I'm going there. I mean, it has an immense power. But even for somebody who's not a Christian, the whole idea, the whole spectacle, the whole thing is so striking and powerful. It is interesting because most of the characters on that painting were Michelangelo painted in the nude, and then the Catholic Church went through this period just when he finished it, where they didn't like nude, so they literally had painters come and cover up the nude parts, which have not been taken off, so we're still seeing them covered up, but they were actually nude in the original because he offended the church with the nudity. But another sculpture of his, which I think is illustrative, is a sculpture at the Louvre, The Dying Slave, which I think is this incredible portrait of a human being struggling, right? Struggling with, he's dying, he's a slave, but he's still got the remnant of fighting for life. And this challenge with him, his body's very kind of contorted, and it's a beautiful, powerful piece about this internal struggle that many human beings, we all experience, and how to live is life worth it, and how to strive towards life. So there's a lot of ways in which art can affect one's values and inspire one.
Yeah, and I have a question for both Dr. Brook and Mr. Kawai. That I heard that you just saw the work of Team Lab. Yes, as of that. So their works are art. If you don't want answer,
I mean, I'm happy to answer. I mean, I don't think they're art. But then my definition of art is pretty selective. I think it's entertainment. I think it's pleasant. I think it's interesting. I enjoyed it. I went there and I enjoyed it. I wasn't like, oh, this is horrible. It wasn't a waste of time. But it was shallow, cute, childish, childlike. I mean, if I was a child, I would really enjoy it. You know, it's butterflies and flowers and crystals. And there were elements in it, like I don't know if you've seen the crystal room where you look up and it's infinite and down. I mean, they're cool, right? There's a cool factor to it. But did it inspire anything deep? Did it cause me to think deeply about the world? No. It was just like, okay, I'm walking through a garden. It's nice. It's pretty. It's pleasant.
like Disney.
It's a little bit like Disneyland. So I think Disneyland is a good comparison. Maybe more immersive in some way than Disneyland. Maybe Disneyland is less immersive. But yeah, the effect overall is a kind of a Disneyland effect.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, probably it can be like a good example. I mean, like Team Love, to think about, what is art, because, I said that like art is freedom for challenging, So if it challenges a pre-existing value, it can be art. But if not, I don't think it's art. And about Team Lab, well, it's challenging in a way, because it challenges a kind of like it uses a new technology. So it kind of like it tried to show something new, maybe something like you haven't seen before using a new technology. But I believe that their criteria, what is new or what is challenging, it's based on like common context of industry. So it is quite acceptable, and people would immediately understand. Oh, this is new. This is like challenging. But it's challenging, but actually it's in an industrial way. So I believe that art is not like that kind of like challenging thing, but art should challenge the, as I said, the pre-existing value or like evaluation. So about the Team Love's piece, it's not challenging. It doesn't challenge to the evaluation, but it just challenges like using new technology, or the kind of like. But it is a quite how to say quite parallel to the challenging of like usual like how to say like usual process of society. So and yeah, that is the point. So that's why I don't think it's art.
Then what about Picasso? Picasso is an artist, of course. Picasso is an artist because Picasso tried to challenge it. I believe that Picasso tried to challenge, especially the evaluation of art. He challenges like to. But I don't know. But I never talked with him. But I believe that he tried to how to say, he tried to challenge the border. What is art? Right? So he tried to make something which is unacceptable as art, and then he tried to call it art. So that is his game, I believe. So for me, Picasso is quite artistic.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think Picasso is an artist in his art. I don't like it. but that doesn't mean it's not art, right? It is art. It's definitely art. And there's definitely a metaphysical, there's a real value judgment there, right? He is, for example, he is taking reality as we see it, and he's purposefully breaking it apart, right? He's decomposing it, and he's giving it to us in fragments, and that says something about, I think, his deepest held beliefs. I think it says something about his value judgments. Again, I don't agree with him. I don't like it, but most art I don't like, right? That's just the nature of things, right? We're going to respond differently to art, but you can make an aesthetic evaluation separate than whether you like something or not. You can say this is great art, but I don't like it. Tolstoy is great literature. I don't like them. I don't like reading him, right? It's painful, but the art is great, and so you can do that. And I think Picasso is a good example of somebody who has kind of what he's trying to project, the values he's trying to project are not my values. But he's clearly projecting values, and he's clearly recreating reality. He hasn't yet got to the point where he's broken from reality completely. There's still a reality there. Right?
Well, Duchamp.
I don't think Duchamp is an artist. I think Duchamp is a critic of art. I think he is a breaker of art. I think he's a nihilistic response to art. He is saying, basically Duchamp is saying, art doesn't mean anything. Art is whatever I feel like it is. And I think that's undermining art. So I think it's nihilism. So in that sense, I don't think he's an artist. He's a messenger. He's a conveyor. He's an essay writer. And he's a cynic, right? And putting a frame around a urinal. That's not art. That's the undermining of art. That's the destruction of art. And I think that's his purpose. That's what he's trying to do. He's saying all this is a joke. All this is, anything can be art, which means nothing is. If anything can be art, then nothing is art. Because you empty the idea out completely, and I think that is him.
So, what do you think?
About Duchamp? Well, yeah, I agree with you in a way. Actually.
Everybody says he is origin of
Conceptual art.
contemporary.
That's right. But probably Yaron is right, probably, because I think Duchamp sort of he changed the way, he's changed the trial of art. So he makes the criticism on art. He makes a criticism on art. Well, he called criticism on art. So probably we should put another name for that kind of way. So it can be an origin of confusion, somewhat. Yeah, but as I said, I believe that he challenges the variation. So in that way, I think he's an artist. So it's really contradictory figure, actually.
Today we are discussing about the art for the island.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Let's go.
This is an art discussion,
Yeah. Go there.
but
It's an art discussion from the perspective of Ayn Rand. So
you are not art expert.
I'm not an art expert. No, but I would say that Ayn Rand, since we're talking about Ayn Rand's perspective on art, Ayn Rand rejects Duchamp as an artist. She says he's not an artist.
So many people say many things.
Yeah, but we're talking about what Ayn Rand said. So
Appropriation is one of the isms currently, like Warhol, those kind of things. But it's not at this moment in time. It's a part of the art history. But many people find the body for that. So Duchamp also. So the art is creating a new body. So Duchamp in Japan, so in a tea ceremony, we are saying the mitate. Mitate means so one thing we can use other way. That is the Duchamp. So but the tea ceremony, is not, that is a so the consolidated way of the art. It's a craft work because everything came from the history. So the artist creates new value. In that sense, Tim Love is an artist. But at the same time, Michelangelo, all his work are the commission work. It's too old. Is that art or not? I don't know. So in a Louvre museum, the oldest work is a Mesopotamian statue. We don't know who is the artist. But museum shows that. But that is not, that is a craft work. So it is not important, that kind of discussion. To me,
I think it's crucial. I think we live in a world in which people are very confused about art,
yes. So
and they don't understand what art is, and they include in the package, in this concept of art, things that are not art, and that creates a lack of appreciation of good art, which could actually benefit human life. So I think it's important that somebody curates and you know, and at least makes a decision. We can disagree with that decision about what is perceived as art and what is not. And since we're talking about the Romantic Manifesto, Ayn Rand has a very clear view of what she thinks art is. You can disagree with her. Many people do on a lot of things.
I don't disagree, but actually I want to understand about Ayn Rand. About the English.
Yes, so what about Ayn Rand you want to understand?
Excuse me, but you gave some examples that I think we might people call them nowadays performance art, like the Duchamp. I think do they call that? Is performance only when somebody is moving, or but like tea ceremony is maybe a kind of performance art,
yes.
Right? And can performance art, would Ayn Rand like some kinds of performance art, do you think?
I don't think she would count it as art.
Right. There was a lot of things that are interesting and beautiful and stimulating but they're not art. Not everything you put a frame around is art. So a tea ceremony is beautiful and aesthetic and conveys a certain harmony and so on. But I think Ayn Rand would say it's not art. It's beautiful and aesthetic, and it's a tea ceremony. Somebody standing in the middle of the road doing I don't know what is probably most likely not art, right? Even though they will call it performance art, right? So it's categories, defining categories is of value, and you look for different things in a tea ceremony than you do from what I think is real art.
It matters of definition, right? Not a value judgment, like you say, necessarily, like you say.
A lot of it's issues of definition, but that's life generally, right? We talk about, we probably have a different definition of freedom, right? So, and even there, that creates confusion in how we talk, because I view freedom as primarily a political concept, right? Freedom is the freedom from coercion, from force, the ability to do what you want to do, free of coercion. But there are other interpretations of it, there are other meanings of freedom, and it's really important that we define our terms so that we know exactly what we're talking about. And art, the topic of here is art because it's the Romantic Manifesto. That's the book she wrote, and she wrote it about art. So I might not be an expert on art, although I'm pretty good. I'm an expert on the Romantic Manifesto, or at least as good of an expert as anybody is these days.
So Ayn Rand called herself a romantic realist, and she was born in 1904, I believe. 05, sorry. 04 was Cuba, I remember. So she was born in Russia, revolutionary Russia, and she grew up reading Victor Hugo and
Dostoevsky.
Yes, Dostoevsky. But I think romanticism usually refers to the intellectual movement, artistic movement starting from French Revolution. But when Ayn Rand says romantic manifesto or romanticism, it's not exactly the same thing. I believe romanticism in the traditional sense focuses more on emotional side, personal expression, but then I believe Ayn Rand had different version of romanticism. Maybe could you talk about like how, why she called herself romantic realist?
Sure. I mean, she identified with the romantic movement that was about personal expression and emotion, and she thought those were really crucial. But she thought there was some underlying principle below that, more fundamental than emotion and personal expression, and that was what she viewed as free will. So maybe, and this is somewhat related maybe to the way you talk about freedom, right? The ability, the fact that individuals have the ability to choose their own path, have the ability to choose their own values, and have the ability to make their life what they want to make it. So for her, romanticism was that which expressed fundamentally free will. And she thought emotions, because emotions are a consequence of values. We get passionate about the things we value. We respond to threats to our values or to things that promote our values emotionally. She thought that was an expression ultimately of this idea of free will. So romantic for her, and she primarily talks about literature because she was a writer of fiction. Atlas Shrugged, The Fountainhead, We the Living, and Anthem are the fiction she wrote. And characters that have free will, characters that express free will. And then the reason she says romantic realist is, but it has to be for her, ideally it's in this world. It's not in some science fiction world, it's not in some fantasy world, but it's in this world. It's realistic in the sense that it's in the world we can recognize, and these are characters that could live. She also liked the definition by Aristotle. Aristotle uses art as life, as reflecting life as it could and should be. So the could is the realistic, and the should is the romantic, right? The should is how it could be, what we aspire to, and the could is that it's doable. Any one of us could become what should be. So in that sense, she's a romantic realist, and she admired artists that reflected in one way or another these kind of ideas, life as it could and should be.
Thank you. Just one more thing, so that people understand a little more about Ayn Rand. She was person of reason. Rationality was really important in her philosophy of objectivism. So if she, in her novel, she was saying, if you have to choose between heart and mind, choose mind was what she was saying. But should art, in her mind, could art or should art be rational? Or what is the relationship?
Well, what do we mean by rational? If we mean by rational that we adhere to reality, we adhere to facts, then certainly an artist has to be rational. He has to know his medium. He has to know how to use the medium. He has to know how to manipulate the medium in order to reflect what he wants to reflect. All of that is expression of rationality. But in terms of how we respond to art, our immediate response to art is emotional. It is a automatic response that is fundamentally emotional. We can then try to understand why we're responding to it, gain an understanding of the art more broadly, the context, what is actually going on, which either enhances our emotion or sometimes it makes it go away because suddenly we understand that we in a sense, were wrong emotionally. But the fundamental purpose of art is the emotional response. It's to provide you with some kind of emotional fuel or emotional energy that you get from the arts, and then you conceptualize it. And various art forms are more or less conceptual. So literature deals with words. So it's the most conceptual. It's the one that deals with ideas the most. Music has no words, right? So it has no ideas, has no story. It just goes directly to our emotion, and in that sense, it's the most direct. And it's very difficult to analyze music. It's very difficult to talk about music. Why do you like this piece of music? It's very hard to put into words. Whereas a painting and a sculpture or a movie or something like that, we can usually talk about. Music is very, very difficult because it's so non-conceptual. So it directly goes to the emotion. There's no evaluation really going on.
So previously, Kawai-san mentioned like the either or ways of thinking, which is, I think, typical or representative of Ayn Rand, way of thinking, could impoverish art. But
I mean, I think it's a caricature of Ayn Rand's thinking, the either or, and in most philosophical issues, Ayn Rand is. She presents it, and if you look at the history of philosophy, this is true. You've got two alternatives, and usually what Ayn Rand is saying, at the end of the day, they're both wrong. There's a third way, and so she's not accepting the either-ors that our culture presents us, or that the history presents us, or philosophy presents us. She's an innovative thinker that's coming up with an alternative. Now, there's a sense in which she believes in black and white. She certainly believes in good and evil, in right and wrong. But she has this understanding of context. She is a nuanced thinker. She's a deep thinker. And she's often coming up with solutions or to philosophical questions that are far outside the kind of either-or perspective that most of philosophy adheres to.
And just another element of Romantic Manifesto was sense of life. And Ayn Rand said, it is a sense of life that determines what you like. Yes.
Yeah, your response to not. Yeah, sense of life is a kind of it's an emotional state that you're in. It's the basis for your emotions. We all know people who are generally kind of positive, and we know people who are generally negative. Everything they find a problem with, everything is negative. That's kind of a reflection of a sense of life. Sense of life is something we usually establish or get in our childhood or in early adulthood when we're very young. It's a consequence of conclusions we're coming to as we're growing up, of the challenges we're facing and kind of the conclusions we come to about the world. Emotions, generally, in Ayn Rand's view, are automatic responses based on conclusions one already has made. So they're lightning fast, but they're based on conclusions you had. Just a simple, a dog attacked you when you were 3, barked at you, you got really afraid, you came to the conclusion, dogs are bad. Now every time you see a dog, oh my God, you get fear. And we all experience this. And you can learn how to change your emotion because you can learn, oh, dogs are actually nice and I can pet them and slowly we can change our emotion, our emotional response to that. We all fall in love and then we fall out of love. We fall out of love typically when we get more information and we said, not for me, and we fall out of love. So our emotions change based on evaluation, based on new data and new evaluations that we make on that data. So our sense of life is kind of the foundation of our emotional state. And we'll respond to, I think, artwork to a large extent based on that. A sense of life is very hard to change once you kind of get it established when you're young. It's very hard to alter, but again, it can. As new data, new evaluations come in, one can actually change this state. It's really a representative of how do I view the world and how do I view myself? How do I view myself in the world? Can I deal with the world? Is the world scary or is the world pretty friendly? Those are the kind of basic evaluations that then lead to particular emotions that come out of that.
So I believe Ayn Rand's view of art is that it's a reflection of your body, your sense of life. Right?
So because your response to art is quick, usually, and emotional, it's what you're actually responding to is the correspondence between the work of art and your sense of life.
Any response to
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, in a way, I agree because I found like two things. So one is that when Ayn Rand she said romantic realist, and you said romanticism it's about like a future, or it's like emotion, it's like future something. But realism is about reality, so it is connected to rationality, right? So Yes, I quite agree with that, because artists, actually, I think like artists should be rational actually, especially when he or she makes, art piece, but not only the kind of thing, but when you think like conceptually, artists should be rational. So, actually, the most of the people think that artist is quite irrational, but actually, it's not true. But the practice of art is like combination of two things. So, but it is quite dialectic process. So I mean, like when you kind of establish like some concept or like some technique with rationality, but you have to break it. So it's quite it seems quite illogical or like irrational behavior. But I don't think it's illogical, because it is a kind of like a reaction, but it will comes up as new rationality. So that is the dialectic of rationality and irrationality. So when I say like when I criticize digital society, probably it might sound like like digital is rational and analog is irrational, but actually that is not true. But I'm not just a big fan of like irrationality. So it's quite like art how to say, art comes up in between, or like interaction of these two phases. So yeah, and that kind of things I quite agree. And the second thing is that the sense of life, and that's very interesting concept. But when you say that like a sense of art is established, in a childhood or something, like through the experience of fear or like joy or something, and then once it's established, and it is hard to change. But I quite doubt that, because art can approach to the sense of life. Art can change the sense of life, and that is the important. This is the importance of art. So sense of life, of course, it is hard to how to represent, hard to change with logical way, or like with language or something. But I believe that art can approach to that phase, the sense of life, and art can change, or art can, if I say like art can question your own sense of life. Yes.
Did we answer some of your questions about Iran philosophy of art? Do you have any questions?
So you. Yaron, you mentioned happiness in your introduction. When I was young, my happiness came from the relative situation. So I was better than others. I joined better school. I joined better home. But now, after 50 years ago, later, so my happiness came from the relationship with my family, friends, relations. So to me, America first concept.
In what way, you understand?
America first?
America first?
First concept.
When we went over there.
They are quite young. Actually, to America first for the people who live in the United States, it's a very strong message to unite everybody. Because in my view, there's no regional American at this moment in time. I'm sorry. But America first to other countries are quite dangerous. So the Germany first, UK first, French first, so of course the China first.
It's creating the quite strong nationalism and also the quite strong war. So in island theory, how can she choose all the factor can survive?
I missed that. How can she choose? Say that again, the last person. How can she choose?
How can she choose the situation? America first, China first, UK first, Germany first situation.
Okay, let me say something about happiness, and then I'll say something about America first. I don't agree with either of your definitions of happiness. So first of all, I don't think happiness is momentary joy. I don't think it's what brings you satisfaction right now. Happiness is a state of being. It's a state in which you are over many, many years, right? Over a long period of time. You can be sad, but fundamentally happy, right? Something bad happened and you're sad, but your fundamental nature, you're a happy person. And I think that kind of happiness comes from achieving your values. And at certain points in your life, your values might be around career. Not relative to others, but relative to yourself. I think you should always be relative to yourself. Who cares what other people? So are you doing the best that you can do? And what is important to you? So it comes. Other times in life, the relationships are of greater value, right? But at the end of the day, it's your values, achieving those values, attaining those values, will determine whether you're happy or not. So happiness comes from achieving one's values, rational values, not just any value, any emotional you think, but really values that are life enhancing, like values that are good for you. And I think it's a mistake to think, well, you know, career doesn't matter. I think career is huge. And partially we wouldn't have families if we didn't have a career and we couldn't earn a living, right? And we spend most of our time in our careers. So, you know, a lot of our values come from our career, whether it's as an artist or whether it's as a business or whatever it is that we do. America first. So first, you know, just so we know, I hate Donald Trump. You know, and I hate him partially because I think your conception of, he has promoted a conception of America first, which is nationalistic and exclusive and with walls. The wall is a good metaphor for Donald Trump. He wants to build walls around America, right? Tariffs and walls and restrictions and limitations. And I think that's the opposite of the way Ayn Rand would think about America first. So if Ayn Rand thinks about America first, what should America stand for? What does America first mean for Ayn Rand? It would mean freedom. It would mean liberty, including, for example, the freedom to come to America, including, for example, the freedom to trade with other people. So for Rand, America first doesn't mean walls. It means trade. It means win-win relationships with other places. So a proper American first policy would not be threatening to Germany or to Japan because it would be a trading relationship. It would be, yes, I care about myself more than I care about you, but that doesn't mean I'm going to exploit you. It doesn't mean I'm going to trade with you. And trade by its very nature is win-win. We don't enter it unless we both want to win out of the relationship. So I think a true America first, right? Not a Donald Trump America first. A true America first would be very different. Would be friendly, would be positive, would be engaging, would be focused on trade and openness and immigration and interacting with the world, not separating from the world. But then there are bad guys in the world. There is China. And you know, you have to be willing to say to China or whoever, but Russia, I think Russia's a better example right now. You have to be able to say to Russia, we want to engage, we want to trade, we want to do good things. But if you violate our freedom, if you kill our people, if you take our stuff, if you do bad things to us, we will not tolerate that. We will defend ourselves. We will protect ourselves. So America first, on the one hand, I think should be open, but on the other hand should be clear. Freedom is our standard, and if you violate that freedom, we will protect ourselves. So I think it's very different than the nationalistic, closed hostility. It's just like I consider myself, so let's make this personal rather than national. I consider myself an egoist, right? I care more about myself than I do about you. I care more about myself than I do about you. I really do. I'm a me first. Everything in my life is me first. But that doesn't do harm to you. That's nothing against you. I want to deal with other people by trading with them, by creating relationships that are win-win. I just, but it's me first in the sense that I want to win. But I don't want you to lose, because if you lose, I probably won't win. So I want to create win-win relationships in every relationship that I have in life. And that's a me first. And I think America first should be the same thing. Not Donald Trump, but it should be the same thing.
Except China.
Well, no, I mean, look, so 10 years ago, if you would have asked me, I would have said China is the most exciting place in the world. It is growing, it is exciting. I can go to China, I can speak, I can talk, I can engage, win-win. And then China took a turn. And China said, Yaron, me, you can't come anymore. We don't want to hear you speak. We don't want to trade with you anymore. So China has changed. And China is becoming hostile. Now, I'm not saying it's not, it might not be America's fault that China's changed. It's both their faults, I think. But if somebody's hostile towards you, then you separate from them, right? If there's no potential for win-win, then there's separation.
Yeah, not everybody change.
Yeah, but you can change for the better, or you can change for the worst.
I discussed with Henry in maybe last century. He said China is in Henry Kissinger.
But Henry Kissinger went to China and he opened China up. But I'm not an admirer of Henry Kissinger. I don't think Henry Kissinger is a good guy.
Well, China is no more important. It was a very old country. Yes.
But I don't think age has anything to do with it. I know young people who are great, and I know old people who are terrible. So I don't think age has anything to do with it. I think it's a question of values and a question of the quality. And I think China is going in a wrong direction, in a bad direction, towards authoritarianism. I said freedom. China's moving away from freedom. Russia is moving away from freedom. And that's bad. And we have to recognize that that's bad. So I don't want hostility with China. But I also want to be able to recognize that my ability to trade with them, my ability to win-win with them, win-win relationship it's more difficult today than it was 10 years ago.
Okay. So the most important to me is you hate Dana.
That I what?
You hate Dana.
I think we better go to another topic, because it's like this is another debate for the political debate. So it's about aesthetics. So it's not about a political debate. So
Thank you very much for very interesting questions and lively discussion. Maybe we can take some other questions. Do you have any?
Sorry, I would like to ask about the idea of the island's way of thinking what is art. And if I understood correctly, I think you mentioned that it's basically the artworks is reflecting the people's mind emotionally, is the art, right? Then I would like to ask, what is the artworks end up in the museum for her? What is the definition of the artworks and deserves to go to the museum? Because I don't say the museum is the best place, but still is the institute can protect and make the artworks left in the afterworld, after we die. So it's one of the best ways for the artworks to remain later. Mm-hmm. But if her definition of what is artwork is affecting the emotion, that means the artworks can affect emotionally to the curator in the museum in that time only remains. So I think that's problem, and we need more clear line what it should remain there.
So she never talks about museums, but specifically, but we need to separate two things. You can make an aesthetic evaluation of a piece of work, art, and you can say, this is good art. And then you make a personal evaluation. I like it or I don't like it. The like it or I don't like it is the emotional response. The good art has to have its own criteria. And that's a science. I'm not going to say that I can articulate what makes good painting, what makes good sculpture, what makes good movies. Movies, very complicated art form, right? Because there's visual, there's music, there's acting, there's the script, there's the story. But that's the role of the curator. That's the role of the aesthetician, the expert in aesthetics. Their job in any particular culture is to say, we believe these are the criteria for good art and bad art, and we're going to collect into a museum or into a presentation or into an art gallery. It's the role of an art gallery owner, right? To say, based on my assessment of what good art is, I'm going to bring art into my gallery and expose the public and expose people to it. And if somebody walks up off the street, they are relying on the fact that they didn't have to go and check all the artists and see, but they're relying on the curating function of the gallery to make choices about what is good and what is not. So there are two different evaluations of art you make. One is an emotional evaluation, I like it, I don't like it. One is I'd say artistic evaluation, aesthetic evaluation. Is it good or is it not good art? Based on your definition of art and based on your definition of that particular form of art.
But then it also calls something that's traditionally can make anything can be art. If you judge by you like it or not, emotionally or not.
So I don't think everything can be art. I think art is something specific. It's a particular type of emotional response. I can go out and smell the roses, right, if there were roses outside, and feel good. But that's not art, those are roses, right? You can tell a story about somebody going out and smelling the roses that can be art, right? That elicits in you an aesthetic response. So we have to be clear about what is art, but like or dislike within the context of something being art, and then good. So there are a lot of things. Art and non-art. If it's art, good, bad, or not so good, right? I mean, some people you look and say, they don't know what they're doing. Right? But it's still art, but they just don't know what they're doing. And then like, dislike, based on my values. So there are a lot of things that you have to, it's work, right? If this is your profession. As a curator, let's say, or museum curator, or gallery curator.
It's their job because we cannot say all artworks exist in this world. And I'm working in a gallery right now, I'm working in here, actually in art space. But so actually the galleries and curators is quite different stuff because galleries sells works. So it's affecting the markets and more economic way. But the museum is totally different place. So maybe in the gallery, the artworks maybe I like, or maybe the artworks the owner of the gallery likes, maybe can be sold, or maybe can be called art, but it doesn't mean that it's different. They can go to the museum there.
I don't know what the criteria for museums are, and I often go into museums and I wonder what the criteria are because most of it looks like junk to me. But this issue of what sells and what is the market is an interesting question. And I think in a society in which people know more about art, where we talk more about art, where we discuss it, we debate it, the market shouldn't be much different than our aesthetic evaluation. Good art would sell more than bad art. I think the fact that there's such a difference, I don't know, you saw this banana sell for $6 million and then the guy ate it. That's a reflection of a sick culture, in my view. It's a reflection of a culture that doesn't know what art is. And people are willing to put $6 million, which is a lot of money, towards eating a banana and making a big deal out of it. That's performative. It's propaganda almost. It's not art. So, but that's the culture we live in. And a lot of people who buy art as investments, they don't making it as an investment because they're saying, this is really good art. It'll last the test of time. It'll show up one day in museums. No, they're thinking, in 5 years, there's somebody else who will be willing to pay more than this than I am, based on, I don't know what the basis on, right? There's been a divorce between the market and I think the quality of art or the goodness of art, which I don't think would happen in a healthier culture. I think our culture's weak, sick, I don't know how you want to call it.
Well, can I say one thing? Like, I believe that one of the biggest problems in our world is kind of bureaucracy. Yeah, because actually museum is run by bureaucracy, and actually the creator, I think the role of the creator, it changes, and well, basically the creator should research, what is not accepted. What is not accepted in the museum, what is not evaluated as art. That is basically the role of the creator. That is supposed to be the role of the creator, but now the creator, the role of the creator changes. Because I believe that art should be risk-taking, but now creator is supposed to be, to avoid the risk. So it's a typical like bureaucratic attitude, and they try to pick up the artist which is already accepted, which are accepted, or like some theme which is quite like trendy or accepted, and they well, most of the time they try to create like political, they try to create the appearance like dealing with political issues because it's trendy. Mm-hmm. But actually, it is not quite radical. Actually, it is really like accepted like political issues. So, and I believe it's quite how to say the problematic, because well, it seems political. But I think like it's kind of like this artist represents one message, and that artist represents another message or something. So it's like a message versus message, but it's really it's not really like not like struggling. It's just like putting this kind of message. So showing up the diversity, so-called diversity. So that is really a typical case nowadays about the creating art. So yeah, so I believe this is a big problem. So if we say that like a museum, how the museum choose art, but it's based on that kind of bureaucratic system. It is kind of like it's a suppression. Actually, it's a suppression of genius. It's suppression of something new. It's suppression of like something challenging. So I believe that now this is the situation of the museum now.
This is maybe the advantage of having commissions, right? When you have somebody rich who says to Michelangelo, "Here's a big slab of marble. We don't know exactly what to do with it. Nobody else can do anything with it. Go for it. Go make something out of it." And he does. And he doesn't have to worry about where the money's going to come from. He got a commission, it's paid for, and he can create whatever he wants to create on that piece of marble. And if he does a good job, he'll get another commission. So, he's not reliant on a bureaucracy to make decisions about what they think long-term will be, or an art market that is very fickle.
Okay, sorry, I joined kind of quite late. So if I kind of like my question and opinion like overlap like something like the past like discussion, please let me know. And I'm just like there are a lot of kind of like parts like you discuss about this. Like I also like partly and partly something like I have different opinion. And the first thing I would love to kind of like to suggest, because like people are talking about definition of something, definition of art. Okay, but like it's also like it can be like as if like people think about one definition, it can be difficult to kind of like I would say it's not nice in the word, but like it's sort of like a waste discussion because some people say this angle, some people say this angle. Probably like the logic are quite like the right for the A angle, B angle. So for example, the lady said like what the function definition of the art like within the museum. For example, there are a couple like a different like, perspective. Commercial art of definition and the art concept of the art is different, and probably we need kind of like the talk about which like more accurately describe what kind of definition is important. And for example, commercial side of art. So I learned kind of like the art management then like in UK, and like the people told me, like teacher told me, it's the balancing act. So to make like art requires a budget, but it's also like it become like the purpose become like the budget investment that takes long because like the balance become more commercialized. However, art needs something like value as financial to survive, to keep creating. Then the museum can have like a significant function, positive function to kind of establish value. And a good curator, I believe, choose no matter how this person is popular, or maybe considerable this certain like a popular artist mixture of unknown artists to balance out to represent nicely. So I believe a little bit like balancing like a discussion is important. That's first thing. And then the next thing, you talk about digitalization. That's also like I would like to ask you, digitalization in a way like in the context of kind of like a reducing signals or some sort of brainwash tool, because we kind of like repeated the algorithm and then like choose the information based on digitalization. Then in terms of that context, digitalization have to kind of like this can be a threat for the human. However, human itself some sort of capacity to perceive something, as if like a digital tool is a tool to show something like the signal, like something tool to show more noise, which our perception itself like can be kind of omit ourselves. Then digital tool can be also interesting tool. So I would like to kind of like hear about more broader term of digitalization. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I agree. I quite agree. Yeah, well, I have one episode. People usually say, like, when then have new monitor, new TV, and they call it like it's like a 4K, 8K or something, like good definition, and they call it like digitalization. But I think it's wrong. It's analog, because if it makes like good definition, right? So good definition means you can see like many excluded factors. That's noise. So for example, like famous actress would appear on a new TV of like 8K or 16K, and she wants to conceal the rings, but you appear, so it is a noise, right? So it should be excluded if you try to pick up only what is useful or what is valuable. So that is kind of like something accidental. So so people call it digitalization, but it's really strange, because if you perceive that, the perception level, it's becoming analog. So we are becoming analog, more and more analog actually, by digitalization. So that sounds really contradictory, but actually that is true. So if we go digital, then actually we go analog also, inevitably. So yeah, that is true. So I always say that like digital and analog is not like that kind of like technical stage, but it's as I say, that it is an attitude. It is an attitude. And probably about art also, the definition of art also. Actually, what is art? What is not art? But it is not a matter of not a certain object. You cannot say this is art, this is not art, this is art, this is not art. But I don't think that kind of thing. But probably art is fundamentally it is attitude. If you connect with these things in an artistic way, this is art. But if not, it's not art.
So we disagree about the definition of art. This is not art. I don't care how he connects with it, it's not art. It's not art. But that goes back to Duchamp.
Everything can be art, but everything cannot be art.
Yeah. But definitions are important, and having definitions clear, it's a matter of thinking. We're a thinking being. To be able to think, we have to have clear concepts and know what they mean. If we don't know what they mean, then we're not going to be very good thinkers.
Thank you very much for thought-provoking comments and questions, and I hope that we all continue to think about the impact of digitalized world in art. And if you would like to explore more about Kawai-san's theory, I highly recommend his book, Reflection. I struggled with it, but after reading it, I discovered a lot of different new approach to digital versus non-digital and art. And if you are interested in the idea of Ayn Rand, I highly recommend The Romantic Manifesto, which was translated and published lately in Translator, being Miyazaki-san here. And so we don't have a lot of time left, but let me ask you just one final question to each of you. So how can we be romantic about art, Alice?
How can we be romantic? How can be romantic? Yeah, well, we should be open to the future, or if we use some Eastern concept, we should be open to the chaos. And well, I call it analog, but but probably you can call it in any way. But we should be open to the. Open to something new, open to the future. So I believe the analog, when I say analog, is the future. Okay, so it can be the answer.
Thank you. The same question, how can we be romantic about art?
Well, I think to be romantic about art, we need to bring order to the chaos. I think that's what art does. I think reality is chaos. And I think what art does is it brings order and brings clarity to the chaos that is all around us, and presents life as it could be, presents the world as it could be and should be, which is, chaos is frightening. Chaos is hard to live in chaos. So what we want is a art that helps us see the world more clearly and with greater order.
Thank you very much.本日はどうもありがとうございました。
Thank you.